The Cannabis Heals Me podcast, episode 103.
You're listening to the Cannabis Heals Me podcast, where we explore the real stories of real people who have discovered the profound healing properties of the cannabis plant in their own lives. Find more at cannabishealsme.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cannabis Heals Me podcast. This is your host, Rachel Kennerly. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have to admit, I'm kind of cranky because there's a construction project going on next door to our house. And this morning at, I don't know, way earlier than what I normally want to get up, I hear this like tink, 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 tink. And I immediately wanted to accuse my son because he's the one that usually makes noise around here. But then I realized, no, he's not up quite this early. But it's the construction. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know if he was like trying to play a metal something or another over there, like a xylophone. But it was just like ting, ting. Anyway. But that's beside the point and completely unrelated to today's podcast. So thank you again for joining me and for listening to me rant about the annoying construction next door. I'll be really glad when it's all done because it's not only next door to our house, it's also across the street. Just lots of construction going on, which for someone whose husband is in construction, I guess I should not be complaining, but he's not the one that's actually working on those projects, so I guess I can complain after all. So rant over, we're going to move on and get into today's episode, but before I introduce today's guest, I want to go ahead and remind you, those of you who have not done so, and I know there's a lot of you listening that haven't done it because I see the download numbers, and they don't quite match up to the number of ratings and reviews that we have out on Apple Podcasts, which is the primary way that most of you listen to this podcast. So I would appreciate it if you would go out, give us a rating, give us a review. What that does is it helps boost the algorithm for Apple Podcasts, and they will actually recommend our show to other people who are listening to similar type content. So that is a free, not in your face sort of way to get the word out about the podcast. Now, if you like to take a more direct approach in how you sell your favorite podcast on the air these days, then we ask you to go ahead and tell 3 people this week about the show. We've been doing this for several months, asking y'all to tell 3 people about the show. Our numbers are growing. And I think it's a combination of the fact that you guys are telling folks about the podcast and you're also rating and reviewing the podcast and boosting our digital footprint in the world as we know it. Now, my guest today is Dwayne Bottoms. Dwayne is an Alabama Parkinson's patient. Several years ago, he discovered that he could actually use cannabis as medicine to help with his Parkinson's. It is not the end-all be-all, unfortunately, because Parkinson's is a progressive disease. I normally edit out if I'm talking to someone and there's noise in the background, I edit that out. But Dwayne is very open about his struggles with Parkinson's. He's had his wife shoot several videos and share his struggles. And so I've decided to leave in because you can actually hear his tremors and the trouble that he has breathing sometimes in the audio for today's episode. And I wanted to leave that in because I want y'all to know what Parkinson's is like and to get a real representation about it. Not this glorious, I take a puff and all my tremors go away, because that's not quite the way it works with Dwayne and really a lot of other people. Cannabis is not a silver bullet to cure everything. It may relieve some symptoms, but it's not going to cure everything and make everything 100% hunky-dory. But compared to where Dwayne was when he was taking the prescription medications, the opiates, to where he is today, I think given the choice between those two alternatives, I think he would rather choose the alternative where he is medicating with cannabis. So without further delay, let's welcome Dwayne to the program. Hey, Dwayne, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Rachel?
Well, I'm good. I'm glad to talk to you.
Same here. I just want to say I do have Parkinson's. And anytime you have any questions about anything, why I'm breathing, why I'm acting, or stalling, or anything, please ask.
Okay.
I mean, one of the things is I breathe, like I'm shaking pretty bad right now, like I'm almost like a seizure. So my breathing is interrupted and I get short of breath.
Oh, wow.
That's why you hear the loud breathing, so we'll try to adjust all that out.
Yeah. Well, if this isn't a good time, we can reschedule. I want to make it convenient for you.
Oh, this is as good a time as any. I'm trying to show people Parkinson's, you know.
Yeah. Have you medicated this morning?
I have. It just, you know, nothing's foolproof, and it's the medicine I have now is some that I made,
Uh-huh.
and it's sort of hard to get it. You know, what's going to be enough to get me through this without knocking me out or whatever. You know, it's hard to regulate.
Yeah, absolutely.
I took pain pills for over 20-something years due to a couple of bad accidents I had. And I've been on Klonopin, sleeping pills, Xanax, you know, the whole cocktail of the crap for over 20 years.
Wow.
I got off one time and got on Suboxone. Had to go to rehab to do that. Of course, some insurance would cover it. And stayed on Suboxone for a couple of years. And then went right back on the pills. You know, this is doctor controlling this. Went right back on the pills. And, you know, it's just been a constant circle of pain pills and Parkinson's pills making me sick. And every time I take the Parkinson's medicine, it makes me sick. If I don't medicate somehow beforehand with some type of nausea medicine. I mean, it's like carry a plastic bag in your pocket everywhere you go because you don't never know what's going to hit you.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Is that a common side effect for the Parkinson's medication?
It is for the dopamine. The carbidopa is a medication, I suppose, that turns into dopamine,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very hard to get it into your body. You know, it's hard on your body and hard to get in your body. And it's sort of like you get a burst of it, like everything will be going fine, then next minute you won't be able to walk. So, I mean, it's just, but I only take one medicine now. I take carbidopa, and that's it.
Hey guys, wanted to tell you real quick about our podcast host and sponsor, Anchor.fm. If you're thinking about starting your own podcast, I highly recommend Anchor. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. They'll distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go out to Anchor.fm to get started. That's Anchor.fm. Now back to the show. Wow. And how many were you on before?
I was on like 6 to 8 a day. Now I take 6 a day. And I was taking 80 milligram Oxycontin
Wow.
a day, plus 4 10 milligram instance oxycodone a day, plus Klonopin as needed, antidepressants, you know, the whole cocktail.
Yeah.
And my missionary trip to Haiti, I went off on a sailboat with a guy I'd never met, just knew him through a friend, and had a whole adventure making a sailboat trip to Haiti, and ran out of, you know, that's where I ran out of medicine because of the trouble we had getting there. And finding a pharmacy there is like looking for a little lady toting a basket on her head with medicine in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Blister packs. And they don't have, you know, they have nothing for pain. I mean, I told my pastor I was with, I said, I see ladies walking around with breast cancer to the point of, you know, basically gangreneish, and they have no pain meds at all. So, you know, that's something I'd like to share with them eventually, is how to make their own medicine.
Yeah.
Because there's a need. And, you know, they're living in the best place in the world to grow. It's just, you know, treaties with the United States, mostly it keeps them from it, like all the other countries. But, you know, I want to try to stay on subject, so you just give me give me some stuff we can talk about.
Sure, yeah. Let me ask you this: now you said you've had a couple of you've been on pain meds for 20 years because of some accidents. Were you having to deal with Parkinson's during that whole 20 years, or is this something that's kind of developed in the last few years?
My accident occurred in like 2001. And 2001, I got crushed between a wall and a John Deere 6-wheel Gator.
Wow.
And it basically a guy pinned me to the wall accidentally and crushed my leg to the thickness of my bone.
Oh,
Almost
my
pinched my
goodness.
leg off. So I had a purple leg. Later I had back problems and everything else because of the accident. And I had surgery for ACL finally a couple years later where it was found. I had surgery for it. It's just been an adventure. I mean, since that, I think about 3-4 years after that accident when I got diagnosed with Parkinson's. And there, doctors were saying it could be numerous reasons, along with the severe nerve damage that I received from the accident. And I was in a rollover vehicle one time that I was driving, which that was nothing serious that I know I did, other than back and neck damage.
Can you tell us more about Parkinson's? Is it a progressive disease, like it gets worse over time, or does it start out really bad and just stay bad?
They say it comes in like a sheep and goes out like a lion.
Mm.
And I'm starting to understand that now. When I was first diagnosed, I had just got hired for the local police department. I was passing a physical test, and they noticed a shake when I was doing a revolver training, non-firing revolver training. So I go to the doctor, and that's when I was diagnosed. And it was just a tremor every now and then. And it progressed into a shake on the whole right side. And eventually it goes to the whole body. And that's what people see. What people don't see is everything that my body does automatically, like temperature control, breathing. The Parkinson's controlled. So everything's out of whack. I mean, I have bad stomach cramps. I'm hot all the time. I mean, it's 40 degrees in Alabama. I got on shorts and a T-shirt.
Wow.
And I get in a vehicle during, wintertime when my buddies go to the woods hunting or something. They're like, they got the heater on. I'm over the window down dying. So, I mean, there's a lot of effects people don't see. And, I went to specialist after specialist. I tried medicine after medicine. And, it's like people say, I'd try this, I'd try that. There's no cure. That's the thing. There's no cure for it. I mean, you can only do so many things and try so many things for disease that there's no cure for.
Right. Now, you mentioned earlier that you had gone on a mission trip to Haiti. I'm assuming that means you're a Christian. So I guess my question is relating to that is, what was your attitude towards cannabis growing up and previously before you discovered it as medicine?
Well, I live in the so-called black belt or Bible belt.
Yeah.
Which, I tell people it's not the Bible belt. Christians that know their Bible know that, it's a good thing, or cannabis is a good thing. I had worked in public service in both emergency medicine and law enforcement. And, growing up in the 80s, I had tried it a couple times, but it just wasn't my thing. And I tried again after I was diagnosed just to see if it would control it. And I went for several years because, being on pain meds, you can't take pain meds and fail a drug test, which, is marijuana, or they pull your pain meds. So I went without it. And come my mission trip time, like I said, it was supposed to take us a month, 6 weeks at the most. We didn't leave until like a month after I arrived in Steenhatchee River in Florida. Our boat had an engine change, and there was maintenance had to be done on the boat before we could leave. And then we had a fire. We had a white squall that was like a 45-minute long hurricane with 75 to 80 mile an hour winds.
Oh, wow.
And then we went through the most water spouts recorded at one time. I think there were like 7 or 8 of them off the Keys. And anyway, when we finally make our trip towards Haiti, we run out of fuel and the wind stops blowing.
Oh my gosh.
So we look at the coast of Cuba and the nice beaches for 4 days. And long story short, we finally make it to Haiti, and we were beat and banged. The tail end of the trip was like a 5-day tacking on a sailboat at a 30-degree hilt and 45, 50-mile-an-hour head-on winds. And basically, you zigzag to make you go the way you want to go, but you had to zigzag to get there. And the boat hilts over, so we were beat up, tired, and I was out of meds. I'd saved a couple for emergency, and I made that when I got there. So now I'm completely out of meds, and I'm talking to my pastor about trying it, and then I tried it before, and I'm like, I feel funny being on a mission and using marijuana.
Right.
And he's like, hey, if it'll work, God gave it to us to use. He said, that's a man's law. And right now we're in God's law.
Well, that is a shocking thing to hear from a preacher from Alabama.
Oh yeah. Well, he's always been interested. And after seeing me, I mean, when I got to that island and started medicating, some friends of ours came in a boat behind us, and they got demasked in the storm we went through, which meant they were adrift at sea. And they called a Haitian friend of ours that went by scooter and dug out canoe into the ocean and took them fuel to get them in.
Oh my goodness.
So, I mean, this whole trip was a miracle.
Yeah. Sounds like y'all were lucky to land there alive.
But this guy gets there, and he knew exactly what to get and what to ask for. And within 5 minutes, we were trying it. And over the next 2.5, 3 weeks, I took education with me on how to make medicine because I'd been studying it for years. So all I needed was fire and coconut oil.
Probably plenty of that on the islands, right?
Yes. And we were on an island called Ile Vache. I hope I said that right, or Port Morgan. And it's a 20 square mile island off the mainland, off the coast of Haiti. And these people live primitive there. I mean, they have no running water, electricity. But first thing I noticed was they had cell phones. And I'm like, well, how'd they charge them? And my buddy takes me to a village that had a solar battery station for charging cell phones. So, I mean, it was pretty interesting that they survive off the land and have no way to make income. And we built a church, one of 3 churches on Ile Vache that we have built. And last hurricane, that was the only roof on the island was our church.
Wow. I don't know if I'm the only one that finds it ironic that in our state of prohibition as it is, that you were still on an island with no electricity and you were still able to get cannabis for medicine pretty easily, it sounds like, in all things considered.
Well, on this island in Haiti, we had a friend and gave him $20. He come back with about a pound.
Oh wow!
And it's like we can't use all this. So I mean, it's very plentiful there. I think maybe the shamans or the witch doctors maybe even know how to make the medicine. But that's what I would like to share with them eventually, is how to make coconut oil and make their own medicine.
Absolutely.
If this country boy can do it and learn, anybody can.
Right. What is your primary method of consumption of cannabis?
I'd like to take oil when I can. I've never been able to smoke anything But I a lot of times that's the only chance I have to use it is to burn it. And burning works almost instantly. For my tremors. It'll stop them almost instant. It hits almost instant. But it all takes an hour to an hour and a half to kick in. And there is a need for all. I mean, when you medicate daily, you want to be able to do it every way you can, because every way gets old.
Right. And a lot of times in the more, I guess, conservative states, that's one of the things that they want to take off the table for a lot of people is being able to buy smokable flower. And unfortunately, that's the way that a lot of people need to consume their medication.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, and they have dry plant vaporizers now that are what a lot of people are able to do to get instant relief. I mean, it doesn't have to be smoked.
Yeah, but it seems like politicians are so afraid of that aspect of it. But I guess a lot of it is because they just don't understand how the body responds to the different intake methods.
I watched a video on why we believe. It's just basically explaining how people form opinions on politics and policy. It was sort of interesting. I think everybody needs to watch it.
Well, send me the link to it if you can find it. Send me the link and I'll post it in the show notes for today's episode.
Well, I believe I shared it to our Alabama ramp page.
Okay, I'll go out and look for it there then. See if I can find it. And it's called "Why We Believe."
I believe that's the title. Why We Believe, and it just explains, how people have their belief system. It's hard to change them. And I found, talking to them and them saying, well, it's bad, it's all bad, like some people will. Instead of throwing the proof and science in their face and say you're wrong, we need to show them, well, hey, maybe so, but look at this. Because by the grace of God, it's not anybody out there listening to me. I mean, it could hit any one of us where this plant would help you. And I've had several friends and all different vocations that had loved ones, mothers from cancer, seizures, whatever, that have asked my advice. And, so we don't ever know. You could be dead set against it. And when you're looking down the barrel of a loaded gun and you're out of options, what do you do?
Exactly. What has been your experience? Well, you're former law enforcement or tried to go into law enforcement. Do you have any contact or is there any local law enforcement that knows what you do and just kind of turn a blind eye to it? Or is this something that you have to do on the down low?
Well, I really can't say because I don't do. Legally I don't do.
Right. I just didn't know, because sometimes folks have relationships in the community and the law enforcement knows what they're doing and they just said, look, we saw what you were like before and we see what you are now. So we're just going to pretend we don't see what's happening. And then at other areas, like, I live in Texas and drug enforcement policy is huge with law enforcement. And so they'll bust somebody over, half a gram or something.
Well, I put it to you this way. Maybe it's just all things in the South, or in South Alabama, but, people aren't stupid. And, I'm pretty well known in the area, yes. And people aren't stupid. I'll just say that, because we don't know when it could be one of our loved ones. And it's definitely something that we've got to change. We've been lied to for so many years, and it's going to take everybody to do it, though.
Yeah. I think that's been one of the most frustrating things for me is that the government has made such a huge effort to lie to us about this plant with so many benefits for 80 years, and people still believe it, and they're still lying about it and still wanting to the federal government is like changing some of their policies in 2021 to start coming after people in medical marijuana states.
I don't know. It don't make sense. I mean, we know the history. Basically a handful of people took it away from us, and now you got to think everybody involved in petrochemical, timber, paper, fuel, medicine will be affected by it. And I'm pretty sure that the most of the people that's going to be making the money is going to be the middle class, the low income people this time. And that's what the uppers don't like. That's my feeling.
Yeah, they want to use the power of the government to keep medicine out of people's hands and keep money in their pockets.
Yes, every day we see a new commercial about some pharmaceutical that's giving cancer or causing some severe debilitation of some kind, and yet we still keep taking them. I mean, we have no choice.
When you said you were on all these powerful opioids, how did you go about getting yourself off of those?
Well, it got to the point that the pills weren't working anymore. I couldn't get enough of them. So after stealing pills from my wife, almost costing a marriage, I decided to try the Suboxone again. And I got on the Suboxone, and a month later I had an accident, hurt myself, a bad fall with cracked ribs and all. I took pain medicine prescribed by a doctor for that injury. So then I got kicked out of the program. And
so even though the medication you were taking was a prescription, they still kicked you out of the program?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I basically had to disappear and had a long, hard summer. And I got off all medications except for carbidopa. And it's not easy at times, but I just don't want to go back down that road.
Yeah, especially if you were to the point of stealing from other people.
People don't understand how hard to drive is. When you're hurt, you know something will help you. And it's like hitting your thumb with a hammer. And if you take a pill, it's going to feel better. You take one, and it starts hurting again. You say, well, it's going to feel a little bit better, and you just an ongoing thing. The only problem is I'd get to the point where I build up so high, I had to taper back down. And it was just for 20 years, up and down, up and down, up and down. And I didn't think it was affecting me.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got off of them, my family and friends were like, oh, my God, you're back. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, oh, man, you were bad. My wife's like, I was just going to leave your ass. My friends were like, you wouldn't believe it. And I'm like, I didn't know any of that. I mean, I just thought I was numb.
Yeah. Just not any self-awareness.
Right.
What is your day-to-day life like at this point?
I pretty much progressed with this disease over the summer. I went from, I could basically carry myself in the woods and go hunting until this year. I physically couldn't do it by myself and only went a couple times. And pretty much my life revolves around the house. And I mean, I'm got to the point where I'm freezing. So I'll start to stand up and walk. And in my mind, I'm saying, everything's cool, I'm walking. And then my foot sticks to the floor. And at that point, I'm sort of jumping, reaching, trying to grab something to catch myself on. And, I may get out and walk to the mailbox. and be fine, and then come back in and fall on the floor. So the falls have got me limited now.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, it's probably pretty dangerous to be out in public and fall.
Well, I've got to the point where I can drive, but I really don't like to drive. And, I used to be conscious about it when I'd step out at Walmart and almost fall, and I'm like, everybody thinks I'm drunk. And, finally I got to the point, just like in restaurants, where people look and I'm like, heck with them. And I tell people a lot of times, they're like, I have some ask me if I'm okay, and I'm like, yeah, this is Parkinson's. Think that, you'll never leave the house.
That's true.
It's already a hard disease to motivate yourself or do anything already.
Well, I would imagine it would probably be far worse without the cannabis.
Oh, it is. When you're in an illegal state, it's sort of hard to get a hold of. And then, you risk jail time. And it's like, risk jail time for what? What was I doing? I was doing something that's been proven to help my condition and is legal in 3/4 of the state almost, or in the country.
Yeah.
So, it's got to change. There's people that need this.
Have y'all ever considered moving to another state where it's legal so that you could have better access?
Well, I just have too many, we have too many family and friends here, and really there's none of the states really stable enough to move to, really, And because federal still makes the law,
That's true. You still run the risk of getting in trouble with the feds, even when it's legal in your state. So, but I totally understand about not moving. My husband is born and bred in Texas, and to get him out of this state would take a miracle, I think.
Well, I don't think that law enforcement is listening to our podcast or caring, or even if they do, trying to arrest patients because they talk about it. But people is forced to do what they got to do, and luckily you meet a lot of angels.
Well, and like you said earlier, until it affects you, for some people, it just, even if they hear a podcast like this, or if they see the results with their own eyes for someone else, until it affects them personally, it's not going to change the way they feel about it or whether or not they're going to enforce it.
Right. And I think it's changing daily, the way people feel. It's almost like the cat's out of the bag, because I have people talk to me about it that I would have never imagined that would be for it and had been using it.
Oh, wow.
But one of the major problems of a lot of people that I've talked to, and friends and elderly friends, like in Florida where they were able to try it, is number one, they don't know what they're getting, and they don't know how to use it. We actually need people that can go to folks' home and say, this is all the ways you can use it. This is how you make this out of it or that out of it. Show them how to do anything they want to do. But then I think they have too much control over making their own medicine, and they're afraid they won't buy it from them. So,
Right. Yeah, I spoke to a gentleman, he microdoses with cannabis. And he takes it just like he would any other type prescription. He takes it at a set time, and it's just a little tiny amount, but that's what his body needs to kind of keep regulated and not have the problems that he has. And that's one of the things that he does, is he'll actually come alongside patients and consult with them and show them how to microdose, but then also show them how to make their own medicine and grow their own plants.
Right.
In the South, that's another thing that the legislators want to try and prevent, is people being able to grow their own medicine, because that terrifies them just as much as people smoking it.
Yeah, and let's face it. I love growing tomatoes and vegetables. This is just another plant.
Yeah.
I believe that if you're gonna sell this product or have a store that sells it and sell it as medicine to somebody, they'll know what they're getting. You must be regulated and you must be taxed. But I think you ought to have the right to grow this plant just like any other plant. And if you know how to use it, and hey, just like if you know how to use corn, you can make alcohol.
Yeah, I guess my problem with the whole taxing part of it is that the consumers are the ones that are actually going to pay for those taxes. It's not the business that's going to pay. They're going to pass that cost along to the patients in a lot of cases. And a lot of patients, like you probably know, are on fixed income. And so an extra 10, 20% in tax, it really cuts into their budget and pushes them back to the black market because it's more cost effective.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, a reasonable tax, not a 75% tax or 65% tax, because people can't afford it. I mean, I read and follow this subject and movement daily, and I believe it's getting more widespread now. People are picking up on it and asking questions.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was listening to another podcast, and they were saying that like 83% of the people in Texas, I think, believe that we need to have some sort of change to the cannabis laws here, which are pretty draconian and probably pretty similar to the way they are in Alabama. So if folks in Texas are feeling that way, I would think most people across this nation feel that way. And it's just getting law enforcement and getting the politicians on board. But politicians are just terrified of it. And I think a lot of that is not necessarily terrified so much as they're getting a lot of money from big pharma.
Yeah, and there's a lot of doctors opening up now
Mm-hmm.
and actually talking to people and telling them the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, I finally, a very respectable doctor of my parents, talked to them about the subject and told them the truth. That was helpful. And the more people that have spread the truth, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, you were saying that a lot more doctors are coming on board, and you're right. I think they're finally seeing the efficacy in their own patients of this medicine for them. What have you told your doctors about your cannabis use, or do you still have to kind of keep that a secret from them?
Well, that's where I was going. My one neurologist, I've been going to him for the past 3 years, basically once a year, to get prescription for levodopa. And he checks me out and says, you look better than you did when you came to me the first time, which was 10 years ago. Just keep doing what you're doing. And I try to talk to him a little bit, and he sort of bobs in and out, but he did tell me that he figured 80% of his patients are substituting the use of it for their symptoms.
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine how many people are using this. I mean, it's like people you just wouldn't believe. I mean, you would, the people that are using it just had to go into using it. So,
yeah, that's pretty incredible for him to make that statement. I would not have suspected, especially in Alabama, that he thinks 80% of his patients are supplementing their prescription drugs with cannabis as well. Wow.
Like I say, the medicines for Parkinson's are so rough on you. I mean, it's just just wears the body down.
Yeah. What are some of the side effects, other than you were speaking earlier about nausea? What are some of the other side effects of the common medications with Parkinson's?
Involuntary body movement.
I mean, isn't that Parkinson's? So they're going to give you
Parkinson's is a tremor.
Uh-huh.
And this will be when a tremor starts calming down, and I pick up a cup off the table, I might stick that cup straight up in the air, or turn it out, or pour it out. Or
wow.
I might stick my arm may go behind my back. It's called dyskinesia, I believe.
Uh-huh.
And like all the muscles in my body contract, and then they shake. So it's like you tighten your muscles up as hard as you can, and then you jerk. And my toes curl as I try to walk. My toes curl up under my feet, so it's hard for you to keep your balance.
Yeah.
And step with your toes curled up. And the only time my toes will straighten out and relax is if I'm able to have the proper medication. So therefore, I start walking better. if for no other reason than it relaxes those muscles enough that I can walk.
Yeah.
And the stiffness that I take the levodopa for is because of the muscle spasms. That's why you get all the aches and pains, is because your muscles are tightening up and then shaking. Now they're doing now.
Goodness gracious. Well, I saw on your page that you have a puppy that kind of helps you.
Yes, I have a service dog.
Is he or she a new addition, or have you had him or her for a while?
Well, 6 years.
Uh-huh.
I always had dogs, and I ran a pay-for-hunt plantation in South Alabama when I got ran over.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had a lab with me continuously. And when I lost him and got diagnosed with the disease, I didn't think I would ever be able to have another dog as good as that, or train one.
Yeah.
I've always been into dog training and good with dogs. Well, this little fella came to us by rescue. My wife sees him on internet, him and his 3 brothers and sisters, which are named Ember, Smokey, and Ash, run to a burning house, rescued by firemen at 8 weeks old with mange and burns.
Oh, goodness.
So we ended up keeping him around the litter and found homes for the other 2. And this guy's the most incredible animal I have ever seen. He will actually come lay up on me with his legs outside of my ankles and try to hold my legs down.
Oh.
Which people with Parkinson's know that weighted blankets help that. My problem is I can't get the weighted blanket off of me. He can get off of me.
That's true.
And so he goes there where I go, and people ask a lot of times, what does he do? I mean, other than emotional and everything else, he keeps me moving.
Yes.
It's like holding on to his leash, and as long as he's got me walking and keeping a gentle tug on me, it keeps me moving and not freezing. And he follows me everywhere. He waits for me to go indoors and ask him in. I can't go to the bathroom without him. He's very, very observant.
And I guess that's just I'm sure you didn't train him to sit on you. He just kind of intuitively knew to do that.
I think a lot of that comes from bonding with the animal. I mean, when you stay with them every given moment of every day, they sort of learn. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Dwayne, are there any resources that you recommend to people who might be considering cannabis as medicine or who have just been diagnosed with Parkinson's?
I just recommend they research. It's really hard in the situation we're in. I mean, you just gonna have to get on the subject and research it for yourself.
Uh-huh.
I mean, or go to a state where they can research it.
Yeah.
Some people can't do that, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's real easy to talk about up and moving, but it's another thing when you actually are faced with doing that.
Yeah, and there's tons of stories. I watched a show this morning with another family uprooted and living in an RV in Colorado. I mean, it's just unimaginable that we're putting people through this because of a plant. And money. It's money is what it boils down to, I think.
Yeah, it's a real shame. I've spoken to several people who have had to leave the state of Texas or whatever state they're in that doesn't allow for it, especially people with kids have had to pack up and leave to go to another state because they don't want to be involved with CPS. So they've had to go to a state where it's legal. So it's a real shame the state of affairs that we we that are in the Bible Belt, as you say, have to deal with, unfortunately.
It bugs me because I have a nephew that has cerebral palsy, and I have a neighbor that has severe autism, and I have researched those subjects extensively. And it's like I tell my sister, you could give him this oil, and he could become a new person, a different person.
Yeah, it's been found to help people with both of those conditions.
But nobody can try it because, heaven forbid, you have to carry the kid to the hospital and get them for an injury, and they check them, then they take them away from the bad parents.
That's right. They wind up in foster care, which is so much better than being with a loving parent who's desperate for medication for their kid.
It's just hard to figure it can keep going on. I mean, I've seen stuff about teenagers and young adults that were terminal cancer that ran off and said, we're not taking medicine and we're doing cannabis, and they're still alive.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's like people are starting to rebel against it, and it's like if they can't do it like they need to do it, they just run off. If the law won't let them do it, they run off and live on the streets to do it, I suppose.
Well, it seems like there might be a little tiny light at the end of the tunnel for you folks there in Alabama. What was it, your Senate that passed some medical marijuana? Well, not passed, but it got through the House or something. I'm not exactly sure what the process there is in Alabama.
Yeah, it made it there. I think they're going to introduce it to the floor next and take an actual vote to see if it's presented to the governor, maybe. I don't know. I try to keep up what's going on, but I'd rather learn the science more than the politic end of it.
No, I understand that. Well, Dwayne, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, and I hope that people who have Parkinson's will hear this and realize that there is some medicinal benefit for them in the cannabis plant.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing this. Alabama Republicans against marijuana prohibition has helped me start a page, and it's ran by me, administrator, and I welcome people with Parkinson's because I have Parkinson's, and I may not check my messages every time or be slow about answering, but hey, that's Parkinson's.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure to put a link to that group in the show notes page for today so that folks can go check that out and then join the group if they have Parkinson's or have a loved one with Parkinson's, so they can kind of be in a community where they can be supported and helped in their journey.
Well, I certainly thank you, and I hope maybe someone can get some information from this. I mean, it's something that's hard for a Parkinson's person to do, is like open up and talk. Tell people it's like it's uncontrollable stress. It's like my mind knows it's okay, no problem, whatever, but my body don't react like that. I'll start shaking more, and in order to completely get relaxed, I can't have any stress or anything going on.
Well, I hope it didn't cause you too much stress, and I think you've done a great job sharing your story.
Oh, it worked great, and maybe we can do another one.
Okay.
I'll be ready to do the next one, maybe. I want to say this, I have an awesome support team, from family to friends to my whole community. This pretty much supports me, and that's all. I'm going to go with that, and it makes a big difference. We got to help each other.
Yes, sir.
We got to help each other.
That's right. Well, thank you so much, Dwayne, and I'll let you go, and I appreciate you so much for coming on and sharing with us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Show notes for today's episode can be found out at cannabishealsme.com/103. It is spring break here in Texas, so I'll be taking this Thursday off, but we will be back on Monday with another healing story. Until then, you guys have a great week. If you're having spring break, travel safely, get home safely, and enjoy your kids while they've got the time off. Thanks a lot for listening. See you next time. Hit the subscribe button and you'll never miss an episode of the Cannabis Heals Me podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or whatever podcast app you're using. Do you have a suggestion for a guest on Cannabis Heals Me? Send an email to podcast@cannabishealsme.com. We'd love to hear from you. Please do not take any information from Cannabis Heals Me or its guests as medical advice. Contact your licensed physician before taking cannabis or using it for medical treatments.